Most people think that avoidants just move on quickly after a breakup, but that's really not the full story. Behind the silence and the distance, there can be a real feeling of shame, and they'll likely never admit that out loud. I've got a super fascinating story about this, so watch until the end. Hi, I'm Jess. I've helped over 5,000 people find love, and I run a one-to-one coaching program that takes you from anxiously attached to secure, so you can trust your instincts and feel confident within. If you're ready for that transformation, sign up via the link in the description box. So let's first talk about the emotion shame, because no one really talks about it, but it's actually a pretty common emotion, particularly for avoidants. Avoidants do feel shame quite a lot. And shame in itself isn't bad. No emotion is inherently good or bad. Yes, we have emotions that feel positive or negative, but negative emotions aren't the enemy. They're really just trying to tell us something and to get us to take action. And when we actually listen to our emotions, they help us make better decisions that align with what we really need. But when an emotion becomes overwhelming and we don't know how to process it, it can stop being helpful. It can start controlling us instead of guiding us. So yes, shame. Shame is one of the most painful emotions to feel. And to differentiate, guilt is more about feeling bad about a specific action or situation, while shame is more identity-based. But still, a little bit of shame isn't always bad. It can help us reflect, stay accountable, and understand how our actions impact others. A little bit of shame can even be motivating. It can push us to grow or repair something when we've made a mistake. I actually think that shame is one of the most, and I don't know if this is the right word, but most effective emotions at keeping societies functioning in a somewhat civilized way. It helps to maintain social order. It's not enjoyable, but it works when it's channeled right. But too much shame, which is what you often see with avoidance, it crosses that line from helpful to harmful. It stops being about reflection and positive change, and it starts being about self-rejection. So if you think that there is something fundamentally wrong with you, it's not going to feel motivating because you don't think that you actually can change. It also means that you'll keep people at a distance because you don't want people to see the real you. It can make you want to hide and disappear, essentially. So shame often plays a role in why avoidant breakups happen in the first place. Because if you believe there's something fundamentally wrong with you, closeness feels very scary, as you can probably imagine. And a quick heads up, if you're anxiously attached, this next part is for you. If you constantly overthink, spiral, and second guess yourself, I've got something that can help. It's called the Self-Trust Blueprint. It's my 3-step framework to go from anxious to secure in life and love without years of therapy or guesswork. And I'm giving it away for free for a limited time. And honestly, I'm super, super passionate about it because I've seen it change so many lives. It's the exact framework I used myself to become securely attached, and my life is so much better for it. I've helped over 5,000 people find love. My work has been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, Men's Health, the New York Times, and many more. And I've spent years refining the exact tools you'll find inside this blueprint. So if you're ready to go from spiraling to secure, sign up via the link in the description box to get it while it's still available. So yes, shame and avoidance and breakups. So once a relationship ends, or say there's a dating situation that ends, it's common for avoidants to feel shame. On the surface, they might look calm or detached. It might look like they've moved on without a care, but that's usually not the case. Avoidants can be very critical of themselves. And the shame usually goes hand in hand with thoughts like, why did I ruin it again? What's wrong with me? I care about them and I hurt them. Or I'm better off alone, at least I can't disappoint anyone that way. Or they probably hate me now. That one is a common one. Or I just don't deserve them. But because shame is one of the hardest emotions to process, even for someone who is securely attached, avoidants struggle with it on another level. Their whole system is wired to move away from painful emotions, not towards them. facing that shame feels unbearable, so they usually double down on avoidance. They distract themselves or try to rationalize the situation. They might tell themselves things like, well, we just weren't compatible, or I just need space and time to focus on work right now, or they were too needy or intense. And these thoughts are essentially a way to try to make sense of the pain without them having to feel it. Because if they stopped and actually sat with what's underneath those thoughts, the reality of the situation, they might have to face a very confronting story. It might go along the lines of, I pushed away someone that I cared about because I didn't feel worthy of that love. And for anyone, that's a really hard concept to deal with on many levels. And the story I said I would tell you, and I've checked that I can share this anonymously. So I once worked with a dismissive avoidant, and he'd had a breakup 2 years before. And just as we started working together, he happened to bump into his ex-girlfriend in the street, just walking along. And it was the first time he'd seen her in 2 years. So he'd ended it, and the last time they'd seen each other was when she collected some of her belongings from his apartment. And she turned up at his apartment, and she was understandably upset. She was short with him, it felt really tense. She just collected her belongings and left. And that was that. And that isn't unusual when you're going through a breakup, that one person or both are sad and angry, and it's usually not a very enjoyable dynamic. But he had made that mean that he was a bad person. In his mind, this wasn't some typical breakup. In his mind, he was this terrible, awful human being. And he'd internalized that for 2 years. And when he bumped into her in the street, when he first saw her, he felt this rush of guilt and shame. And they started talking, and then she said, look, I'm sorry for how I acted when I came over to your apartment when we broke up. I was really upset because I did really like you and you'd broken up with me. And his mind was blown. He realized that she wasn't angry because she thought that he was this awful, terrible person. She was hurt because she cared. And he said he felt like there was this huge weight that had been lifted from his shoulders. And it was so overwhelming for him. And he felt such a sense of relief that he had to go find a coffee shop and just sit down. And this is someone who doesn't usually feel things deeply. So just like that, 2 years of internalized shame was lifted. And if you're struggling with shame, I can't give a blanket solution because it is complex. And the way you work through it depends on where it comes from. But what I can say, like more broadly, is that there is a good antidote to shame, and that is self-compassion combined with curiosity. And self-judgment is what amplifies shame. So that's what you want to avoid. So yes, I hope this has given you insight into the shame avoidance feel after a breakup and even before. As you can see, there's a lot more that goes on beneath the surface, particularly with avoidance. And it is absolutely possible to heal your attachment style. I guide people through that process all the time in my one-to-one coaching program. So if you're ready to stop overthinking and finally feel confident within, sign up via the link in the description box. Thanks for watching.